Matt Widmer joins us to talk about the story behind Wild Life Distillery, from a handshake over whiskey to building a Rocky Mountain craft spirits brand. We get into entrepreneurship, partnership, authenticity, culture, and the decisions that define a business. Matt, where are we?
We are in Canmore at Wild Life Distillery.
How did you get into the spirits business?
It's a loaded question. It's always been on the radar. I used to live on Vancouver Island as a post-university kid. I guess that would have been like 2013, 2012, somewhere in there. And BC at the time craft distilling was starting to be a thing. So my family is entrepreneurial. My dad owned a restaurant in Banff for 40 plus years. And so after university, took a couple of years and was living out there and just surfing and working in restaurants. And honestly, living the dream. It was amazing out there. But was kind of like noticing there was cool gin and vodka coming out of these little distilleries on the island and on the mainland. And just kind of thought it was cool. So yeah, I did a spirits course. I guess I was already thinking about it because I did the spirits course in 2011 in Chicago at the Koval Distillery, which is in Ravenswood, just a cool Chicago neighborhood. And that just kind of was like curiosity. It was like a 3-day, inch deep, mile wide type course. And I just sort of put on the back burner. That was an interest, but never really thought it would be a thing because I was just out of school and not really ready to jump into anything. And then, moved home, was working at the restaurants, and Keith Robinson, who's my business partner, he was a longtime buddy, and we traveled a lot together. And part of, I guess, from the entrepreneurial side of things, having a business partner was something that was important to me in terms of like a partner in crime. You want to have somebody that you can, whatever, for a cheesy term, your ride or die, or like that person that you can trust and be, that no matter how hard the shit hits the fan, it's like there's somebody there that will be okay, just the two of us. So I'd always, shared with him what I was up to and that it was an interest, and kind of strategically coercing him into like thinking it might be a good idea at some point. And then, in 2014 in Alberta, they changed the laws. The AGLC reduced like the production minimums. So before you had to be basically like an ethanol factory to get a license. And then they went from a really high minimum production, which was like 250,000 liters, down to 0 to get a license. So they kind of created a new like craft license. And at that point, I kind of turned to Keith and was like, holy shit, this could be a thing now. And obviously in BC, it was growing. In the US, it was booming. Alberta was like a brand new opportunity. We talked about it for months, I guess, probably in the beginning. And then at some point we shook hands on a camping trip at the back of Upper Kananaskis Lake over a pour of whiskey. And that was the beginning. So it was 2015 when we kind of signed a lease and started doing all the things.
Nice. Yeah. Just over 10 years ago now then.
Yep. Yeah, our business will be 10 in January 2027.
Right on. Coming up.
Yeah. So it's been a bit of an adventure for sure.
So pre this legal change, it just wasn't an option to become like a craft producer in Alberta.
No, there was essentially like 3 large ethanol plants, for lack of a better word, like large production facilities in Alberta, and that was it. There was no craft. There was nothing smaller than a factory.
So it wasn't necessarily something like, even though you were interested in becoming a producer or interested in the spirit in general, the spirit world, it was not possible here.
Correct. Yeah, we could have done it in BC, but growing up in Banff and having, it's a sweet place. There's the families here connected to this area. Keith grew up in Canmore, so we're both kind of rooted in the Bow Valley. Jumping into an endeavor like this in BC just didn't seem that home-centric, or I don't know what it was. There's a lot of pros to the Bow Valley. It's a beautiful place, is where we, grew up and want to recreate and enjoy the mountains. And so, unless it could be here, I don't think we would have done it, just for all of those different reasons.
I mean, you mentioned kind of recreating, growing up in Banff and those kind of things. So I want to dive into that. Obviously surfing as well. You're obviously active. You're into the outdoors, probably do a lot of more activities than we've even chatted about off camera. So how do you take that lifestyle? I know a lot of your branding is even based around lifestyle. How do you take that, those things that are important to you and work that into the brand that you've built?
Yeah, it's kind of been a work in progress. I mean, like, transparency coming into this business. Keith took business at school. I took kinesiology, so totally unrelated to the distilling industry. So, I mean, like, from a branding perspective, the short answer is the brand became like an extension of us. We would make decisions about the company based on what we would do as people. And in doing so, I guess, extended our personalities into the products, into the story, into the branding, into the name, into the space, like, all the little things that kind of went into it, but not because of a formal background. Honestly, probably because of like an ignorance into like how you're supposed to do it in a way. Like, we didn't go to school for marketing. We didn't go to school for sales. We just or branding or like any of that stuff. It was just because that's what we would do as people. And therefore that was the natural thing to do. It really simplified it. And I think in the beginning we didn't realize what we were doing. We just did it because it felt like what we would do. But it was really nice to not have to think, okay, I need to wear my like company hat and what's good for our business versus my like personal hat. What would I do? It just like those lines never got created. And looking back, I think that's like the organic beauty of the brand is that it's kind of Matt and Keith's personality. It comes through in there. And, as you grow and add team members and want to expand, I think it becomes a little more of a challenge. Like, we talk about how do we not depersonalize the brand, but how do we like not make it a revolve around us, from a like not wanting to be the center of attention and not needing to be everywhere in every space or like every activation we do or trade show or speaking opportunity or whatever it might be. But I think we're not there yet. I guess as the world becomes more, I don't know, boring with like generic type things, it's like having a person behind a story, I think is still valuable for us. And maybe it'll always be. It's just a consideration that we think about at times, is like, does it all need to be Matt and Keith? Because we have an amazing team. We want them to be involved. They're, doing tons of the awesome work that the company is doing. But I guess it's kind of still the founder's job to be somewhat central, and we're still hands-on involved in the day-to-day operation. And that it kind of extends into like culture and, team fit and team core values and some of the stuff we were chatting about with EO, which, we've continuously worked on. And I think, as much as you hire skill set, we've always hired personality and good people as well. Which I think if you surround yourself with good people, who share similar values, then the like company values kind of, integrate into the business in that sense. So that's kind of a long-winded answer, but it was really just like a natural, we would just chat and say, what would we do? And that is what the business ended up doing. And I don't know, like, I don't think that's necessarily good business advice for like a lot of people, but for us, it's what worked. And it also like allowed us, because we're in the mountains, Rocky Mountain water, Alberta prairie grain in the spirits business, that like marriage of geography and Canmore and where we're located, it just made a lot of sense. And it's a busy competitive industry with lots of big brands splashing money at various projects and product. So I think it's kind of like in a maybe unintentional and sort of roundabout way, like created a little niche about what wildlife is that nobody can copy because it's just us. So not by design, but maybe by happy coincidence, it's like given us a good brand of what this business is, because you can't pretend to be us because, we're just us.
Yeah. I think there's a beauty to that. And I think, I mean, you mentioned the attraction from like a staff perspective, and that's helped build your culture just being you guys, right? But I think that also extends to the customer, you know, they buy into the brand because they buy into you guys. And even if they don't know you, your brand is exhibiting these values as well. I think too often there's, you know, a brand will build itself with like core values or whatever the case may be that are not them at all, and it'll fail because of that, because it's the brand isn't exuding those values.
Yeah, I mean, core values, I hate that word. It's like such a corporate, just like, I don't know, awkward term. But if you can get them right, I think it's like, it can be really powerful. And yeah, I think I've thought a lot about them over the years, and I think right now we have a really strong set of them. But I hate the like one word, you know, integrity. Oh, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, so we elaborate a little bit and give like an explanation underneath them. But yeah, we weave them into, you know, as frequently as we can into the HR activities and scorecards and things that we share with the team, and everyone's aware of them, and we could do probably a better job of making sure they're front and center, but they're definitely there, and I would say they're solid. And that definitely helps the team like understand what the company's all about, which is powerful.
Yeah. I think there's nothing worse than kind of coming across somebody's core values and being like, this is not at all what I know or believe to be the brand to be, right? So
yeah, I mean, you're probably in an interesting space where you get to see behind the curtain of some companies and to see what they have for core values, and then know that person and be like, really? This is not you at all? But I don't know. It's like, it's a mental exercise. It's not, it's actually, it sounds simple, but it's really tricky to like nail them. And I've found like the easiest way to discover them, or one way that I've found it useful, is when team members don't work out, or like you have to let somebody go, or things just clash. That's a really good opportunity to be like, what was the thing that just like pissed me off or didn't work here? Or why did they clash with team members? Whatever that is probably the inverse of that is a core value. So I've used that a couple times where it's like, this didn't work at all. What was it? It was that. And that the opposite of that is a core value, because it just like gets you riled up and you're like, that was like getting to me. So that must mean it's like an emotional deep value that I hold, which, yeah, that was just like a little tidbit trick that I pulled out of the EO stuff.
Chatting about culture now too, beyond core values, right? Where it's like people feel like they belong or don't based on kind of the way that the company moves, operates, makes decisions, etc. Do you hire with kind of culture fit in mind?
Big time. Yeah. I think I should look at our job post today. I think there's a core values section. If there's not, there's a lot of the language weaved into the like job description stuff. But yeah, I mean, we're a little shorthanded in terms of talent pool in the Bow Valley, just based on number of people here. You know, there's only a couple thousand people, between 10 and 15,000 people in the area. So inherently you don't have access to the broader market that you might in, say, Calgary, for example. So yeah, we have a hard time finding like a super specific specialist for the business. So we default to like good people that fit the culture and the core values, because if they're probably able to learn and, you know, pick up tasks. And obviously there's a baseline of experience. But yeah, we've found resumes don't always translate into good culture fit. And honestly, good culture fit, it is more important, as long as, you know, they're capable of learning and growing with the role in the company. That is more important long-term than having a sweet resume, but they can't work with anybody. So yeah, but we definitely do that.
You mentioned obviously working in hospitality and restaurants and that sort of thing before you started your business. Mm-hmm. I'm curious about kind of one of those things that, I mean, everybody that's worked in hospitality has horror stories, whether it be from, you know, their own experience or shared experience or whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that you experienced when you were working in this industry before starting your business that you were like, hey, I'm gonna fix this when I do, you know, like I don't want this to happen in my business?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was definitely a role model. I think I carry a lot of his like positive things in terms of like caring for your team. Like he would have a staff, a staff meal every day at like 5 o'clock. The whole kitchen and the front of house would sit down and eat dinner. He's from Switzerland, so he's like old school Euro guy. And he would have servers with him for like 20 years. A person would serve at his restaurant. So like in terms of taking care of team and like being a nice person, which sounds cliche, but just like, being honest and open and like having whatever the conversation is, like person to person, not hiding behind like, do this because I'm your boss. I definitely learned a lot from him in that respect. And then, in terms of horror stories, I don't know, just like managers who are wieners and just poor people skills. Like at the end of the day, any business comes down to like being a good person, like running your company, and finding those people that can exude that skill set. Like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book, he talks about a lot of that stuff. And it's like, regardless of the context, and business is the same as like interpersonal relationships. So I think I was really lucky with an awesome family. My mom and dad were just superstars and supportive and loving, and gave us opportunity to fail and learn and just let us figure things out, but also just like being good role models. The restaurant, I guess what you learn is like multitasking. Honestly, like being a server, engaging with like hundreds of people over a matter of weeks, like that's probably the best thing I ever learned, was just like understanding people really quickly. And like you get that guest who walks in and they're hungry and they're pissed off and they had a day and they just really want whatever it is, reading that quickly. And just like, so it's like prioritizing, which probably helps in the business world of not, again, it's like the important versus urgent thing. It's like, this is important and urgent. Let's do that first, and then we'll get to the important stuff, but not as urgent. So I think probably just people skills, reading people, because you get to see like people at their best and their worst. It's usually when they come in is at their worst, and when they leave is at their best, because they've had a nice meal and a nice time, and they're fueled up. But in the kitchen, the restaurant industry is a bit of a grind. But I was lucky to work with some awesome chefs, and the best restaurants I worked in were just like solid teams front and back, and not super hierarchy, just like team approach and people jumping off the line to wash dishes if you need something, and just going out of their way to make sure the whole operation worked well. There's a ton. Honestly, the hospitality industry is like, it's a struggle for a lot of restaurants. Like it's a grind, but I really respect the people in it because of the that like day in, day out hustle. It's tough and it's competitive and it's expensive now, and food and labor and everything going up. And it's awesome to have great restaurants to go out to and enjoy that industry. So that's probably the most of it.
I think every industry can learn something from the hospitality industry. Like you said, the grind, the hustle, the bustle, the integrity, the catering to guests, the reading of guests, all these different things. A lot of people that I've spoken with on this show are people who have, whether they're in hospitality or not now, they've experienced hospitality in the past, maybe worked a job or two or whatever, and have always carried learnings forward.
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time, but and I was also lucky. My dad, it was like a finer dining restaurant, so kind of got to like jump in at a level of service expectations to see like how the best people operate in a room, how a like 20-year veteran server works his section, and what's he doing now and why is he doing that, and just like learning the prioritization of things and being efficient and not whatever multiple trips. It just seems simple, but you can translate that into other things in life that are whatever more complex, but the same principles can apply.
You mentioned in there the kind of decision-making criteria of just like being a good person, which I love. I think that's important. But I'm curious, has there ever been a point, and maybe you can identify it or not, or multiple points where like being a good person and maybe like the right thing for the business are contrary, and if so, how do you handle those kind of moments?
No, not really. Like a lot of opportunities too, for sure. There's been moments in the business where For example, like a customer had ordered a large amount of a certain product and like 5 pallets of something, and the product was finished and packaged, and we discovered there was a problem with it. The option was like, just ship it and see if they notice, and hopefully like it's fine and we just go about our business. But the being a good person alarm bell was like, you can't just ship this. This is like a thing that I wasn't proud of as a business owner to put out. So I called them in here and we tried it, and they agreed that it was a problem. And yeah, we ended up redoing that entire batch for them. But that customer is today like our best customer. It's a larger organization, but they've continued to be they were and they are our best customer, and they're like, far and away. They sell a ton of our products. And he didn't tell me at the time, but he later on said, he's like, yeah, when that happened, it showed me what kind of person you are, and I appreciated that. Even though it's like, it's not his business, it's not his money, but it was for me, which makes it even more like, let's just ship this out the door and see if they care. But yeah, I think that like whatever strengthened that relationship. And he brought it up like 2 years later and was like, yeah, I do remember that when you did that. That was like pretty big for me to just see that's how you operate. So that's just one example, but I don't know. There's probably lots of little ones day to day that happen, but yeah, it is tough because it's financial. Usually it's like, where do we cut costs? Like there's like a gray line of like, at some point, are we cutting costs past where our values lie? And we try not to do that because, I don't know, if I'm the one like standing in front of you being like, try this bottle of whiskey, I would have a hard time being as like proud and authentic and committed to like what I'm telling you about it if I knew there was like flaws in what I was saying. So I think that carries into the team too. They see, the grain to bottle production that's happening just around the corner here. And it makes them proud, and they hear us talk about it, and it just kind of like feeds into, I guess like the full circle of what we're doing here is, and it probably ties even back into just core values, which I guess was probably kind of why you brought it up. But it's tough, but I have found over time when you pick the thing that is the right thing to do, that it's usually the right decision in the long term. Like that decision probably cost us, I don't know, 8 to 10 grand of cash, but the long-term reward was far greater than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it goes so much further than people realize, right? Like, could you have kind of shipped that off and maybe gotten away with it? Sure. But then that customer might not be a long-term customer. Plus, like that, the integrity that you showed, it's safe to assume that integrity that you showed in that moment probably goes a lot into every decision that they don't see as well, right?
Yeah. It builds trust at the end of the day, is what most business decisions are. Well, relationship-based transactions are what that's all about. So, yeah.
The growing up in an entrepreneurial household with an entrepreneurial dad, you mentioned going to surf on the island and working hospitality and that sort of thing. But did you anticipate that you might become a business owner at some point or a founder?
Yeah, I kind of just thought I would do something. Again, I guess I just saw the option of running your own business, and my dad was big on lifestyle. He was big on location. Like he came from Switzerland and saw Banff in the 60s and was like, how is this a real place? In Europe, it would have been, hundreds of years developed and like done. Whereas in Canada, because it was just a new region, he saw the potential of the zone, and I wanted to plant roots here, and that's what he did. In terms of like the lifestyle, location, entrepreneur wise approach, I didn't plan on, I guess when I was at school, I thought I might get into physiotherapy or occupational therapy or something, being in Kines. But I think I always thought of school as like a learning experience that it wasn't so much about the subject matter. It was just about like learning how to learn in a way. Whether I totally understood that at the time or not, I don't know. But as soon as I graduated, I was kind of like, I guess, that was ingrained in my DNA that I wanted to do something on my own. And then I just didn't know what for a while. So it probably took, 5 years to figure the what out. And then this opportunity kind of fell not into my lap, but it became a reality after sort of thinking about it. So I was fortunate in that I had like gone away and traveled a bit and studied it and was like interested in it. And then we got into some home distilling and we're kind of tinkering around with what we could do. And then the laws changed, and that was kind of, after that was it. I think about that a little bit. Like, what would I have done if I hadn't done this? I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. It's too hard to like think like that, I guess. But, who knows, 20 years from now, if we're not doing this anymore, what will I be doing? I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. One step at a time.
Yeah.
You also mentioned having a business partner and how important that was for you to be able to bounce ideas and make decisions together and all those different things. And I similarly have a business partner. A lot of the people we chat with do, and some people sit in the opposite camp where they're like, I want minimal, not support, but I want to be able to solely make my own decisions, etc. How do you guys ensure that you have a good balance in what you do? And like, do you segregate your roles? What does your communication look like? Because same with anything, sometimes it can be tricky and sometimes it can be the best thing ever.
It's really been an evolution. What it looks like today is very different than what it looked like when we first started. In the beginning, we did everything. We had no employees. We opened up just the two of us. So we were full production. Producing. We started with a vodka, so we had one product from grain right to bottle in this space that we're sitting in right now. And then we were running the tasting room, so it was like pretty hectic. But yeah, essentially over time, I would say just over time, as like parts of our role have either got like too much to manage, we would hire, or like too much to handle, we would hire. Or things that became like inefficient to do together, we would delegate or like decide who's taking things over. So yeah, I'd say now we have like a pretty good split, and that's just been like a process. It's like happened over time. It wasn't like one day we were just like, right, this is all you, this is all me. It was like one thing at a time to a place or to a point where now there's like a pretty good segregation of work and roles and responsibilities. And I think we just like naturally, we didn't force anything. It was kind of like what the other person was good at or enjoyed more. And I don't know, it's kind of tough because there's some parts of it where like we both like certain things, but you just, have to let go of parts of the business at a certain point where it's capacity really. It's like there's just too much going on that for us both to be involved in everything can be a lot. And over time we've distributed the workload evenly. And what was I going to say about skill sets? I don't know, team members. Part of it is like, adding the right team members, and it's kind of an ebb and flow. It's like, there's times when I'm busier, there's times when he's busier. That's what it was the reason it works really well for us was like before we shook hands is like the foundational trust and respect and knowing what the other person's good for. And just like knowing I can go away for 2 weeks and like Keith has to carry the load because that's how it works. And he can go away for 2 weeks and I can carry the load. And knowing that opportunity exists for both of us equally has been super important. And like we shared an inbox for the longest time, which was just like an easy way to just be like fully transparent. So both of us would see all of our emails. Both of us, we could like jump in and respond or not respond. And we had a little system to know like who was on top of what. And some people hear that and they're like, that's fucking crazy. I can't believe, but it was just easier because there's nothing to hide. It was like, if I would respond in a way that he disagreed with, he would tell me, or they would just let it happen. Because that was just, we never like, I don't think tried to one up or step on toes, or we both just, I guess it comes down to like a commitment thing where we were both just so committed. and like failure wasn't an option. It was like, whatever it's going to take to make this thing tick, that's what we were going to do. And yeah, pretty well from like the time we shook hands, we both quit our jobs and jumped in with 2 feet. There was never like, I'm just going to like side hustle this part and make sure that wildlife will work out. It was on day one of like, well, before we even had any revenue, like when we started building this space out, there was a point where we both quit our jobs. And then it was like, okay, this is real now. We got to hustle to get this place open to start turning a profit or making a buck before you turn a profit. So yeah, I think if I would do it again, I would do it the same way. I don't think I wouldn't want to do it alone. It's like, there's so many things that went wrong. It's like, we first got our still, so the still is like the piece of equipment that you distill in, like that's a still over there. We ordered this fancy still and it showed up and we were like, it was like exciting times. And then we like filled it up and started heating it up and it was like started leaking. And we were just like, what? With hot alcohol, which is like a terrible thing. And yeah, like pretty much everything that could go wrong went wrong at some point or another. But like having to just like bear that and deal with that on your own would have been terrible. So I think like especially in the beginning, it was like I'd have a bad week and he'd pick me up. He'd have a bad week and I'd pick him up. I'd say I have like a dangerously close to too much optimism at times. And he has a little more like realism and just reality check. But I think we like balanced each other out really well. So yeah, I think we're a great match. I think there's things that I do that he benefits from and vice versa. And yeah, it's, we're super close and it's been cool to do this with your best buddy. And there's been times of struggle and strife and challenge, but that's like what it's all about, It's like getting through those things and then you're like, whew, okay, that was gnarly, but we're
on
here.
to the next. Yeah.
Still alive.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting that you mentioned the shared inbox thing. I was reflecting while you were talking about that, and we similarly, my business partner Claude and I shared an inbox, and I've never probably the first 5 years, something like that. Yeah. And I've never really thought about that, but I've also had countless of these conversations and nobody's ever brought that up either. And I think that is such a kind of maybe a trust building is kind of one thing between the two of you, but there's so much, you're right. There's so much transparency there that I think that carries through, like even when you stop doing that for whatever reason, it's, a really interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just see, I don't know, you learn a lot about someone from how they run an inbox, which is weird to say, but like, how long does it take to respond? What do they say? How do they write? How do they sign off? Just like little things where you just kind of are getting to know your partner on like a business level. And it was an afterthought. Like it also was like, let's save $50 and just get one email.
Yeah. Practical.
Which is part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an initial decision that I only noticed like looking back later that people were like, that's really weird. And I was like, oh, is it? I was just like the way we did it initially. And then at some point we got our own and whatever, we can see them. But it just builds trust, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. You said you both quit your jobs to start here, obviously. And during your build out phase, which is commendable. And I think there's something to be said about the fact that, there was no second option. Like you said, their failure wasn't an option. You were going to make this work. What's the conviction level required to do that? There's probably there are a lot of people who maybe dip their toes in or have a second option or a fallback or whatever the case may be, but you guys jumped right in. What does that look like?
I think that's the unhealthy amount of optimism maybe for me. But it's kind of like, I don't know, if we're going to do this, like, let's do this. The longer you take, and this is like, I guess for people starting out, it's like the longer you delay commitment, the longer you take to start. There's like any moment in time where you're not actually going for it, and you'll know if you're going for it or not. Like, I don't need to tell you whether you are or not, you'll just know. Just delays the success you might gain in the future. So I don't know. that's just how we approach a lot of things in life. Like Keith's an amazing surfer. Like I would say his commitment in the ocean to just like a wave is like inspiring to when he's going, like he's going. And that's in surfing, that really works well, because if you hesitate, you're going to get hung up in the lip. You're going to go over the falls. You're not going to catch the wave. So it's kind of an analogy for business in a way. It's just, if you really have to, or when you really commit and go, you're in the right spot, then you catch it. Just like it works in your advantage, to your advantage. And yeah, I guess we just didn't want, we put all our eggs in this basket, and I mean, going bankrupt is always a possibility, but there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate that. And now with the advancement of tech, like there's a lot of things we used to do that are like a lot easier now that would save time today. And yeah, we took the approach of just go for it. And I hear people who like are doing what we're doing, but have another job in our industry. And I'm like, how the fuck could you manage that? Especially in the beginning. And I think like you don't know what you don't know in any industry until you get into it. So like you can plan and think you're figuring it out and make a business plan and like, but until you put whatever your product or service is in front of a customer and be like, tell me what you think. Or like for us, it was go into a restaurant and bar, go into a liquor store. Like until you can fully see how that happens in reality, you haven't really started, you know. It's a mentality thing. I do think I'm like too optimistic at times, but I think it's been useful in this business because it just made sure that we were pushing forward and finding ways to sell and make money and hire team. And because the alternative is just like stagnation or like slow growth or non-committal. And a lot of people just like non-commit and then it doesn't work out and they're like, I knew it. It's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, well, you didn't commit because you left that door open and you knew you left that door open. So of course it didn't work. Yeah. So for us, I think it was like, if we say it's going to work and it has to work, it's going to work. So I don't know. That's just a mantra, I guess, or a philosophy, but yeah, it's scary for sure. It's like stressful and a lot of times where you're questioning if that was a bad idea, but you just kind of figure it out.
You mentioned there that there's all these things that you plan for, right? And when you're starting a business, you kind of try and map out everything that could happen in the early stages, where you want to be in the future, all these different things. And very rarely does that ever kind of stay the course that you imagine. I'm curious about some of those things that you might have planned for, like you said, until you put the bottle in front of the customer and they try it, you don't really know anything. What are some of the things that you planned for that maybe didn't work out the way that you expected them to?
I don't know. I think like you can get blinded. Like I talked about optimism a little bit. You can get blinded by what you think is really cool and exciting and new and fun and everyone should love it. And I guess like the salesperson's job or the marketing team's job is to like tell that story in a way that it works. But I think probably the biggest thing was just like the reality of the industry, the competitiveness of our industry. And that's it, probably initially there was a ton of excitement. It was new. It was exciting. We were like the 6th one in Alberta. I was like, wow, local gin. This is cool. And now it's like local gin, our shelves are full. So it's like you kind of have to recreate the excitement, or you almost have to like niche further as we've gone along. So yeah, I would say like the reality of the alcohol industry, and we're just currently still in Alberta. That was probably the biggest one of like, this market is huge. Everyone's going to love us. It's going to be everywhere. Oh my God. And then it's like, you talk to a few managers and they're like, get the hell out of here. Or our shelves are full, or it's too expensive, or, you know, all the different, not excuses, but like reasons. So customer behavior, I guess, is what that's speaking to. Yeah, I mean, our business is just like, I probably underestimated the complexity. Because because we're kind of like three businesses in one. Like we're a manufacturer producing products from grain, which is in and of itself like a complicated thing. We're a hospitality business running a tasting room here, which, is like having a little cocktail bar. And then like we're a sales and marketing agency basically for our own brand with a sales team, a marketing team, administration, everything that goes on with that. So like planning for that to be simple was probably a shortcoming, but it's also been something that like we just kind of grew along with as we did. Like business plans, I don't know. I think business plans are kind of bullshit. I think you'll learn more in like a week of doing something than you will in 3 months of writing a business plan. That's just my opinion, because you don't know what you don't know again. And it's like anything where until you're just out there hearing customer feedback, or you actually try the thing that you say you're going to do and see if it works or not. It's like that information is way more important than your whole entire business plan. And you make all these assumptions. Like business plans are assumptions. And not to say like don't work the numbers. There's probably people listening that are like, well, that sounds like a bad idea. But like you can learn so much so quickly. Like don't spend all the money, but like spend a bit of the money, try the thing. Whatever you learn in that process is going to be more beneficial than spending however long you're going to spend writing this business plan. And I think, like now with AI, there's a lot of ways you can kind of shortcut that, but there's still the reality of your current market or whatever market you think you're going to enter. And it's like, unless you're in some happy niche where people love you and you already have hot customers or leads and they're like begging you to do this thing, that's one thing. But in most cases, you're kind of starting out and trying to penetrate an existing business area that probably has competitors that have it figured out. And that becomes a challenge. So, yeah.
I think it's really interesting because you mentioned, obviously, like we chatted about this a little bit earlier, but everybody would have started at the same time because it was a legal
shift
in invitation before, and then it became possible. Therefore, and then I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that you might have seen like this massive influx of people kind of entering the industry, and then probably a lot of people realizing that it's not as easy as they might have thought or whatever, and have exited. But you also said that you've, one of the things that you've done is niche down further. What is that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I guess it means like, so we're talking about alcohol. You could be like wine, beer, spirits. So then spirits is a niche within alcohol. Craft spirits, which would be like small batch, grain to bottle, local, high quality, is a niche within craft. A niche within like spirits. And then under craft would be lifestyle, geography, authenticity, obviously commitment to product, which kind of falls under craft, and like people. And I would say if you combine those things, it's hard to like be completely different because at the end of the day, we're making spirits, which other companies do. But I would say if you combine like where we're physically located, which is in the mountains in Canmore, the commitment to lifestyle, so celebrating the place we are with the things we love to do and the people in the mountains, with us as people, and the product quality we've won like 90 different awards over the last 9 years. That combination of things I would say is like our niche within craft. And I would argue like we're the only person or company that I know of that's really like committing to those elements of what a craft spirits brand can be. But the market of people who celebrate those things is really big. So I'm kind of giving away my cards a little bit here, but but the reason it's like sticky or impactful, or like call it a moat, whatever you want to call it, like defensible, is because we're like actually doing it. This is not just like a branding talk about what I think we should do. This is like who we are and what we're actually doing. So you kind of have to be in the mountains. You kind of have to be really into lifestyle and mountain living and whatever getting outside means to you, which is like, could mean anything. It doesn't need to be extreme skiing. Like it could be going for a walk by the river under the Three Sisters. Awesome. With good people and the product quality. You talk about like a restaurant, it's like what's on the plate should be number one. what's in the bottle should be number one, but there's so many other things that like connect people to a brand and connect customers to like your story that, yeah, I like to think that all those things create our niche. Whether I'm right or not, I don't know. But like I said, in such a competitive industry, you kind of need to pick something that's, well, you don't need to pick. You need to be different. You need to stand out. And I don't think you can do that with just one or two things. I think like the brands that'll succeed are the ones that are people can get behind, and like we're here because we love to be here, and like our why is the lifestyle, and like connecting people to the mountains through craft spirits and a good cocktail is kind of what we're all about. And I think you could just check out our website or come in here or meet one of us and get that. And I don't know how to explain how to create that other than just like being yourself, which kind of ties back into the like branding piece. And I think that's like the niche that we're trying to kind of do our own thing and just be true to who we are as people. And hopefully that resonates with people. Because I don't know, what do you think about that? Like that's my spiel, but as someone in like the marketing space, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I first of all, I 100% agree with the whole like be yourself thing. I think we chatted about that earlier too with in the earlier part of the conversation. But being yourself, I think that, you know, if you do that properly and you're not just kind of trying to be somebody that you aren't, then that comes across authentically to both staff and customers, like we said. Yeah. And I think like people want to see themselves holding the product, drinking the product, whatever the case may be. So if you can exemplify that, you're friendly in the tasting room, in all of your marketing assets, it's kind of faceless, and I can see myself being that person in the advertisement or whatever the case may be. I meet you and I agree with your vibe, and I like what you got going on, then I'm more inclined to. So I think everything that you mentioned is extremely accurate. What I would be curious about is there's this kind of age-old debate whether you hyper-localize and you use like, your story as your forefront when you're trying to penetrate other markets. Or if a good example might be like a city name in a brand. Obviously that's not the case for you, but you are owning kind of the mountainous lifestyle and that sort of thing. And there's a stream of individuals who argue that that's really good. So for example, if I've ever been to Canmore and I live in Quebec, and I'm like, oh, I want to buy your product because I've been there, I love it, and it reminds me of that place. And then there's other people that are saying, oh, well, I've never been there, it doesn't resonate with me, whatever the case may be. So as you penetrate other markets, as you look into expansion in different provinces, countries, et cetera, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good point, because that's something we battle with, like trying to depersonalize ourselves from the brand too. But I think like by going, so Wild Life is 2 words, the wild lifestyle essentially. And I think we've sort of tried to position it in a way that it can travel. And I think like being in the Canadian Rockies, regardless of where you are in the world, is somewhat, I don't know. A lot of people know this area. A lot of people have been to this area. The Bow Valley sees like 4.5 million visitors a year, I think now. So I think as far as like a brand that can travel, I think it still does. And I think there's a way to like spin that where it's like the aspirational lifestyle. And also it's like, I don't want to use like Arc'teryx as an example of a brand that's like kind of for the hardcore mountain athlete. But that to me, so their brand was built on like extreme gear for the extreme people, right? And look at downtown Vancouver, who's walking around in Arc'teryx jackets. It's like, it's a very small subset of the population that are, most of them live in Canmore, these hardcore athletes, or Squamish, but it doesn't matter. Like it attracts a certain type of person who wants to do that, which I do think can kind of be a lot of people. So it's almost like counterintuitive where you're really niching down into like this super specific area of the population that it could be perceived as exclusive. But I think if you do it in a way where it's like open to the general public, as like, you don't need to crush a 513A, but you can still rock the gear and think that people that do that's cool. So I think that's almost like proof of concept for me of like they're a brand that obviously is inspirational and like they've done it in the clothing space, which is like obviously a super competitive and like done market, but it shows that the ability to connect the broader market to a really specific market can happen. And I guess that's probably like one of our goals, is to share our story more further. It doesn't need to be that you're in chem or doing something rad. It's just that you think that that's cool, or you want to associate with that as a brand. And I think because we're like legit and we do these things, it gives us like credibility and I don't know what the right word is, like authenticity, I guess, for people to get behind, who want to like celebrate that because they maybe haven't even ever been here, but they've seen a photo of the Lake Louise or the Three Sisters or whatever. So yeah, I think by not having Canmore in our name is good, because Canmore Distillery doesn't mean shit if you're in Winnipeg, but wildlife can. Maybe it means fishing on the lake in the summer with your buddies going for pike or whatever. So and I think as we grow as a brand, our marketing's definitely been like Canmore centric, but I think there's opportunities to expand on what wildlife means and turn it into cool whatever assets and stories and images of people doing cool things all over the world.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I mean, we've chatted about this, kind of has been a through line, but the fact that you live that, and that is exemplified by your brand is what people resonate with, right? And so we've chatted about kind of the heart of the brand, but I'd like to also touch on the branding itself, like the actual imagery, the design, that sort of thing. And I believe you mentioned when we chatted earlier that was a local graphic designer. So walk me through. I mean, a lot of brands kind of overlook the importance of how the bottle feels, looks on the shelf, etc. And that's clearly not the case with you guys. The first thing I was drawn to was the bottle itself before I had tasted it. And so obviously that was important to you. Why?
We actually rebranded maybe like 4 years ago. We started with, wildlife, 2 words, but initially it was all animals. So the vodka was like a wolf, the gin was a bison, we had a lynx, in different shaped bottles. And then at a certain point, we felt they were a little like disjointed as like a brand family. In spirits, you can kind of take 2 approaches. One would be like a house of brands, where a vodka looks different from a gin, looks different from a whiskey. Or you can be a branded house, which is the path that we've chosen, where we wanted our products to sit as on a shelf as a family and be different, but still you could tell they were wildlife. And the rebrand project probably took like 2 years, because we were already operational. It was like kind of off the side of the desk, and the amount of details and mock-ups and iterations and bottle designs, and it turned into a bit of a thing. But thank you for the compliment. The result, I think, speaks to the location, what we're doing, the products, the premium. I think it turned out really well. And that we worked, with a friend, his name's Aaron Hitchens, who does branding, marketing. He does video, photo, all kinds of stuff for Rockhouse Motion as a company. We worked with him throughout that process, which was great. Yeah, he had, team members that were marketing and design experts that helped us kind of take ideas and turn them into options on a bottle. But there's glass, print factory, ceramic, ink. There's a lot of details that you can go down. So it's also like, from a business efficiency standpoint, it's like how we didn't want a different bottle for every product just for inventory purposes. So all the vodkas and gins are white. Those bottles are all the same when they show up, and the whiskeys are all black. And then we use the different label colors to differentiate the products. So there's also like just like physical business considerations that kind of get factored into that. The brand initially was like a friend who helped us with our logo, Wild Life Distillery, with Castle Mountain. And then now Castle Mountain's kind of been an extension of, it's wrapping our cans, it's wrapping our bottles. We chose that mountain because it's kind of an iconic peak in the area that's not on everybody else's logo. So it's when you're driving to Lake Louise, it's on the right before you turn south towards like the Columbia Valley. but the Three Sisters, Rundle, Cascade, there's the Assiniboine, there's a lot of mountains on bottles or on people's logos. So we wanted to kind of pick something different to stand out and be like distinctly wildlife, but still recognizable. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of been, there's always some branding project on the go. Because once you start, it's like, it's hard to find time for that, but like you said, is super important. And I guess the other reason we rebranded was like just standing out on the shelf. We felt like as the craft market grew, our bottles weren't as distinct on the shelf anymore. So we tried to go with something that like stood out in a dark room, in a light room, on a retail shelf, in a back bar that people could see from far away as like a beacon of wildlife. So that was the goal anyway.
Yeah, and that's certainly what it does. It's eye grabbing, and that's the first thing you want, on a shelf. You want people's eyes to be drawn towards it. So.
Yeah, and we wanted to kind of up our game a little bit we felt like we're a premium brand. Our old packaging was maybe a bit less premium than we wanted to be. So that was another kind of reason for the swap.
As a business owner and operator, one of the hardest things is generally managing time, right? Managing your own time, finding time for yourself, deciding what to work on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, you actually mentioned the kind of matrix of urgent and important and that sort of thing, which is awesome. But how do you ensure that, especially as somebody who does care for the outdoors and, probably has outdoor activities going on the weekends, that sort of thing, how do you manage your time? How do you ensure that you get time to yourself, even when times are tough at the business and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of running your own business is you can kind of pick your moments to crush work or to step out. I mean, today it's mostly just by planning. It's committing and planning. So if there's a trip opportunity or a weekend somewhere or a island getaway, it's just, I guess we prioritize it because I can just work every day, no problem. There'd be things to do. But yeah, his lifestyle is a core value of us and also the company to prioritize that. And we encourage our team to do that too, is, when we're here and we're working, we're being productive. But when that trip's coming up and you need to go away, then you should do that because yeah, there's definitely something to the pause and the taking a break and the reset mentally and just getting away from the inbox and the busyness that happens throughout the weeks. So I guess part of it was just committing to it. And then I guess over time, noticing what happens when I do that also. Like my wife talks about this. She's like, whenever we're on holiday, I'll tend to read, which is maybe like business books, which is maybe like not fully checking out, but at least it's like separate from working right in the company. And she's like, yeah, you always come up with some idea or you just kind of like have time and space to think about the ongoings and the problems and whatever's on your mind. I'm trying to think of this author's name, the guy that wrote Who Not How. And Dan Sullivan maybe, and 2x or 10x is easier than 2x. He talks about how he like plans his year. And I mean, he's probably an extreme example who's like very successful and now has created the luxury of some money and time for him to do that. But he'll put like a very small amount of like work days in he starts with like planning out his whole year with like free days, I think he calls them, where he's just like literally not doing anything. And it's something like over 200. It's like 200 plus of these days. And he's like, that's first. And then he puts in like his work time, which I thought that's like something to aspire towards. I mean, he's also like who not how is his mantra. So he's like, I'm not the right person to do a lot of this, but I need to find the who to do the how, which I think is a good lens just to look at like adding team members or, taking things off your plate if they can free you up to do things that are more impactful for business growth or a new project or whatever it might be. So yeah, I mean, I guess Keith and I just try and plan in advance and put things in, and they're never negotiable. It's just like, I'm going away. So, and obviously we try and set each other up for success when we are away to make sure there's as little as possible for the other guy to have to handle when you're gone. But yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
I think that's such an overlooked piece of business, especially early stage, when you just founded a company, and obviously there's times and periods, and especially early stage, where you do need to just grind. You just need to be present, and you need to get everything done, and you need to do it in a timely fashion, etc. But as you're looking at true growth and scaling and that sort of thing, and you're not wearing all the hats, it's so important to go reset and, like you said, be away, because you're going to come up with ideas. It's not like you're not thinking about the business, but you're not in it, right? So yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that happens is when you're present, you kind of enable potentially like unhealthy behaviors from your team by you always being around to ask the question. And usually when you're gone, they're smart and they can figure it out, and they then realize, oh, I can just figure this out. So it's almost like counterintuitive, where you think you need to be there to whatever, answer all the questions, but in reality, if they just have to figure those out for a little while, they probably can. And then they're like, oh, it actually creates time by going away, which is probably the most powerful thing about it.
What does success look like for you?
I mean, I think that's personal. I think everyone probably has their different definition of it. I guess for Keith and I, it's probably like what we were just talking about. It's like the freedom to be able to go away and take the trip and explore and travel and still have a smoothly running business at home. And that's probably like what we want to work towards eventually. And I think like we have a healthy amount of time away, but I think like the lifestyle in both of our eyes is the success. It's like we're building this thing, yes, to have hopefully a successful business, but also to be able to do the things we want to do in life that aren't just revolving around work. I would think that Keith would probably say the same thing. And I think that's like why, like, start with the end in mind. It's like, that's always been our goal, is to just like, not never work, but have the ability to choose when you want to work and what you want to work on, and have a team around us that are awesome and can do the tasks that are involved in running the company. And I think like, if and when we get to that point where that is what's happening, like that, I think is success to us. Yeah.
Where can we send people to taste your product, try it, find it on the shelf, etc.?
Yeah. Come to Canmore. Best place. We have a tasting room here with an awesome cocktail menu. You can come and have a tasting or try a cocktail. We do little charcuterie boards. We do distillery tours as well. So there's lots you can do right in Canmore. And then in the city, if we're talking Calgary, honestly, probably our website. Depends on where you live. We're probably in 400 to 500 different locations around Alberta. But there's a map on our website for retailers. Look for us on cocktail menus. Look for us on back bars, or the white or black bottles with the mountains on it. And then, online is probably another option. We do ship in some provinces. Alberta wide, we're readily available for the most part. The other thing you can do if you're in like rural Alberta is a liquor store can order us off Liquor Connect, it's called, which is like a centralized warehouse for any liquor store or bar can order from it. So you can always ask your local store to bring a bottle of or a case of Wild Life in. Most of our products are on there now. Best case would be take a trip to Canmore.
Beauty. Yeah, we'll make sure people do that.
Yeah.
And outside of Alberta, is there plans to?
That's kind of my that's probably like fall next year project, is to work on new markets. We are not distributed anywhere else at the moment. Our philosophy was just like really focusing on core local home market for the first while, to get it to a place where we felt confident that if we stick our neck out to a new market, that we weren't going to just fall apart at home, which I've heard stories of in our industry. I would say we took the kind of slow approach with new markets, because it's like alluring. We make products that are like shelf stable and, no expiry date, are consumed around the world. So there's no shortage of opportunity. But we didn't want to risk having issues at home with competitors or just under-supporting customers or whatever it might be. So we've gone slow with that, and I think in the next few years we'll start hopefully being able to find us in new geographies.
Right on. We'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much, Matt. This has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.